Item number 10 is extension of the contract 658, which is the maintenance contract which expired 010 with a renewal period.
Mr Chairman, I'll take this item as being read. Just perhaps highlight the contract was for a 5-year term. Minister of Transport a number of months ago announced the Road Maintenance Task Force, and one of the principal areas that they're looking at is specifications and contracts. This is an opportunity, if we delay this by or extend it by 12 months, to gain the benefit from anything that arises out of that. That's going to be published in about March of next year.
Okay, so councillors, do you have any questions for this? It's fairly mechanical, but it has to be approved by you as governance, as it's a contract.
There's just only one thing I would like to add, is that we do need to get NZTA approval as well before we could extend it for that 12-month period.
That's what the resolution says, doesn't
yes,
it? That's subject to receiving approval from the NZTA.
That's correct.
So we're only approving this if you get that approval.
Yep.
Contract number 658, etc., etc. will be extended to June 13. Do I have a mover? Yep. Move, Councillor Downard. Second, Councillor Crate. Anything further on the matter? Being nothing, all those in favour? Aye. Carried. Thank you, Mr Lewis. Item number 10, transportation hub option. If you don't mind me calling you Flash and Will. How are you, Pen? So it's over to you, my friends. If you could give us a bit of an overview of your agenda item here and your options, and we'll take it from there.
Yes, certainly. We, after the previous council meeting, we went out and investigated different sites. Using the graph you can see there, we tried to suss out what a bus station needs: information, toilets, food outlets, etc. And we sort of compared various sites around the town. And basically we were just after leadership from yourselves as to where to from here.
Add anything to it, Will? Or you want to gild the rose a bit?
Yep.
Gild the lily, I think it is. Sorry.
Yep. So I guess this gives council the opportunity to review what it wants to do with Gascoigne Street. Really, two options: you can just keep the transportation hub where it is at the moment, or you can look to shift it somewhere else. So if you want to look to shift it somewhere else, there's several options that we've put up, which Flash has just talked through there. We did look at there's 4 different options. So we looked at the existing site, Tongariro Street, Hiahia Street, and also on Taupo Street. Obviously, there's been a lot of work done the last couple of years with the town's infrastructure plan, and a lot of that work has talked around trying to put people in the same place. There's an existing transportation hub right outside the eyesight, and there's another one just across the road outside Experience Taupo. So there is, I guess, some history there where there are some transport operators there, operating there already. So, as Flash saying, we've done the review, and it's really just over to council if you want to keep Gascoigne Street, or if you want to look at relocating, and if so, where that might be.
I've just got, obviously the research all points to going into Tongariro Street, but just one of the things, 6 days of the year that street is blocked off for events.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that would be one of the conditions of them making that site.
Yeah. And I guess I thought about it over the weekend with the half Ironman on, and there's already bus operators stopping outside there at the moment. So I think part of what we need to do if we went down this track is actually just find out what's happening at the moment.
And the second question is, does the buses will all go in the same way, like they do at Gascoigne Street? They'll all come in from south to north. Am I right there?
Certainly the way we've looked at it so far would be one directional, so there's only a bus station on one side of the road, rather than splitting it. I mean, you could split it, that's an option, but to have it on one side of the road and use the roundabouts as a way of reversing buses, so they're all facing the same direction, but they're actually 2 directional.
Third question is, obviously you're going to need a bit of infrastructure there, aren't you? You're going to need an office and all that, so that would all be built in when the structure plan comes up for review.
What we wanted to do is just take it step by step. So obviously just get a steer from you as to what you want to do, and then we want to sit down with both the taxi company and the bus company and actually work out what their requirements are, because they may be very little, they may be quite a bit, and actually just work it through in that way, which is why we haven't got any costings in this item.
Question's kind of been answered about the costs. At this point in time when we're trying to minimise costs, we have a building that's undercover, has got dunnies, got a taxi stand there. Are we in a position, and what are the requirements for a new bus depot? Whether we can really afford it. That's what I'd like to know. I think the site's perfect. You bring people to the front door, no questions there. But is the timing right?
So I guess just to answer your question, it's really around having that conversation with the bus company, primarily bringing into Cynthia Newman's, because you've already got the likes of Naked Bus stopping outside Tongariro Street at the moment. So that gives us some confidence that there's actually that behaviour happening there already. There's stopping, and you'll see that outside the domain. They're sitting in the bus shelter, or they're sitting outside on a sunny day. So again, it's just really understanding what the usage requirements are. An example of that, we could have nothing, because you've got a lot of the infrastructure around. The other end of the spectrum is to build a really big purpose-built building, or you might go for a middle option, which simply just has a veranda sitting out from the extension of the library. So again,
Gareth, you did some work in New Plymouth, and it was just a road frontage, wasn't it? With no verandas and coverage.
There's the opportunity to make use of the current eyesight. There's potential there, depending on how the bus companies feel about maybe incorporating ticket sales into their existing operation and extending their current hours. I mean, we've got the toilets are covered, they're already there, but there is, and I think really we wanted to make sure that if a decision's made as to where it goes, then the scale is probably another decision which comes back to council as to how much or little needs to be done, or do we do a small amount that can be added to over coming years that we can, this is the essential. It would be nice if we had the following, but as growth takes place, accommodate for it.
Councillor Downer?
Mike kind of follows on from Chris. You've got in here, you've already had initial discussions with Transrich and the Taupo taxi. Have they been given those different options, or it's just a discussion to shift,
The taxi firm were quite keen on coming closer into the town centre, because certainly over the weekend their business is based out to Ferratoa Street, so the closer they could get to that, the happier they were. And Transrich weren't against, but we haven't really had much response from them other than they were keen to talk.
What about infrastructure-wise? Have they kind of let on if they do shift that they need this and this and this?
No, they haven't said whether they want to own it or lease it, or in fact whether they need it at all. So.
I'm with Chris too. I'm just I'm afraid to say I just think at the present timing I don't see the point in doing it half pay. I think we've talked about in a previous forum about maybe some traffic issues, because Naked Bus, they may not be having all those cars bringing all those passengers and taking them away that like we see in Gascoigne Street. And then we talked about maybe the ultimate site for them might be to the rear of the Great Lakes Centre, and which would, it's no point in doing something, I don't think, with starting something unless we really have got the capital there to complete it. And so for that reason, I think it could just lie for a year or two because of the financial constraints. And I don't think Gascoigne Street, I mean, it's not long term, it's not the option, and it's not preferable, but in the meantime it's not really remote, it's not going to cost us a lot in opportunity loss.
Mr. Chairman, I guess all we're asking for here as staff is your indication in terms of that location. What we would then do is go away and do that work, so have the discussion with the operators, look at what infrastructure and that wider plan, because you're quite right, at this stage we don't know about who have done that work in terms of the movements of vehicles, the parking, things like that. But if we didn't want to go and do all that work and then come back to you and you say, actually, we don't like that site at all, so it was a waste of time, what we'd like to do is your ability to go, your approval for us to go away, do that work, come back with that information and the costings, the wider picture, whether or not there's any other savings, etc., that can be any accumulations with other plans, and then at that stage you could decide, once you've got all those facts and figures, about when and how you can do it, if you still want to progress at that time. So sort of bite-sized pieces, I guess, at this stage, just saying, is this area that sort of does it sit comfortably with you? And if so, then we'll go and do that work. Doesn't mean that you're going to build the bus station anytime soon. It's just that we'll go and do that investigation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
I was just going to say through the chair, probably just the other thing to mention too here is that moving away from Gascoigne Street does give council the ability to free up to dispose of Gascoigne Street as a property asset, which is obviously
that's our freehold property, isn't it? Councillor Lynch.
Just the same guy's concept. I've always talked the concept of dropping people off the front door. You know, I'm a big fan. But to do with when Nicola just touched on the main road and the activity there, and it's not the buses, but it's the other car parks required to drop people off, pick them up, and if the taxis are going to run through there as well, wouldn't more in the rear of Story Place around the back, something like that, the space to be more suitable, that's still basically the front door for us? You've given us the options. Are these the only options we have?
Yeah, so again, I'll probably just reiterate what and just build on what Gareth said, is that I guess what we're looking for here is a steer in terms of a general location and in terms of say Tongariro Street, and what we didn't want to do is put up an option which had something which was fully costed and fully specced out, which neither the taxi companies or bus companies bought into. So what we're wanting to do is actually go away and talk to the taxi company and the bus company and find out, because the taxi company might not actually want to be located at Tongariro Street. They might want to be somewhere else, and likewise the bus company might have different needs and wants as well. So to answer your question, we essentially want to look at that Tongariro Street side and look at where it might best be placed. Is there enough free parks within Story Place at the moment by the library for drop-offs?
Okay, well, from my point of view, I like the idea of bringing visitors to our front door. I like that. But I also am very conscious of the fact that good planning ends in good decisions. So it's a planning manoeuvre that we need to go on, because we're not necessarily building it tomorrow, because we haven't got the money to build it tomorrow, but it's a planning decision. And I'd just like to go to page 10/3 and look at the resolution. For me, personally, I'm happy with number 1, but I would want number 2 taken out of the resolution. The council agrees to termination of current leases. There's no point in us agreeing to termination of current leases because we haven't decided where we're going. But I do like number 1, because it's to proceed with the planning of and bring the planning back and show us how it's going to work, how much it's going to cost, how the traffic's going to be affected, how the cars are going to drop people off or not drop people off, etc., etc., etc. So I personally agree with number 1 of the suggested resolution, but not number 2. So do I have support in that?
I can just suggest, you'll see that on suggested resolution number 1, it's leaves it open as to the site.
Well, I mean to Tongariro Street, okay, in number 1.
To the
but number
words,
2 is not necessary, huh?
Absolutely, I'll suggest the words, the taxi rank to the general area of Tongariro Street, Great Lakes Centre, or Tongariro Street, Story Place.
But it's planning to come and show us how it works or doesn't work. So if you, what's the wording you want to put? The general area of Tongariro Street?
Tongariro Street / Story Place.
Okay, / Story Place. So put that into number 1, take number 2 out. Do we have a mover?
Yeah.
Councillor Crate, do we have a seconder? Councillor Truman. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Oh, cemetery.